Welcome back to Life Stories Network, where we share emotional journeys, family drama, and unforgettable life lessons. Today's story is about something that changed my life forever, the night my parents canceled my 18th birthday because of my brother's tantrum, and how that one painful moment pushed me to make a decision I never thought I would take at such a young age. I had been waiting for my 18th birthday for as long as I could remember. To me, it wasn't just another birthday. Turning 18 was a milestone, a sign of independence, of stepping into adulthood. I had planned everything weeks ahead. My friends were excited. I bought a dress that I thought would make me feel confident, and even though our family wasn't rich, I thought we'd at least have cake, some food, laughter, and memories. But life doesn't always give you what you hope for, and sometimes, the people you trust the most can hurt you in ways you'll never forget. On the morning of my birthday, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. I went downstairs expecting to find some excitement, maybe even a happy birthday from my parents. Instead, I found my mom and dad whispering nervously in the kitchen, glancing at my brother, who sat at the table with a frown that could shatter glass. My brother, Daniel, was 2 years younger than me, and he had a way of making everything about him. If he didn't get his way, he'd throw tantrums, full-blown screaming fits that could last hours. I used to think he'd grow out of it, but by 16, it was only worse. I smiled and softly said, "Good morning. It's my birthday." But instead of warmth, my dad sighed and said, "Honey, we need to talk." Right there, my stomach dropped. Those words never mean anything good. He explained that Daniel was upset because he felt I was getting all the attention and that he couldn't handle the party we'd planned. My mom added, "He's been crying all night. He doesn't feel included, and it wouldn't be fair to him if we went ahead with the celebration." My heart sank. At first, I thought they were joking. I actually laughed nervously and said, "You can't be serious. It's my 18th birthday." But their faces didn't change. My mom looked down, and my dad crossed his arms like it was already settled. Daniel smirked from across the table, like he had won a battle that wasn't even his to fight. That smirk broke something inside me. I realized in that moment that no matter how much I did, no matter how hard I tried to be the good daughter, my parents always bent to his will. I pleaded with them. I reminded them that this was the one day that was supposed to be about me, the day I had looked forward to for years. But my mom said softly, "We can celebrate another day. Today we just need to keep things calm for Daniel." Another day? Another day would never be the same. You don't just reschedule turning 18. I felt invisible, like my feelings were too inconvenient for them to consider. And all because my brother didn't like the idea of me having attention for once. The house suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. I went back to my room, sat on my bed, and stared at the decorations I had secretly bought for myself. Balloons still in their packets, a small string of lights I'd imagined hanging across my wall. I thought about all the times I had given up things for Daniel, family trips cut short because he was tired, meals ruined because he didn't like the restaurant, and now, my birthday, my 18th birthday, erased because he couldn't stand the spotlight not being on him. Tears blurred my vision as I realized this wasn't just about one night. It was about years of being overlooked, ignored, and made to feel like a shadow. I had always told myself things would get better when I turned 18. That maybe then, they would finally see me as my own person. But here I was, the milestone finally here, and it was taken from me in a heartbeat. The pain hardened into something else, a decision I never thought I'd make so soon. I realized I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I began packing slowly at first, unsure if I really meant it. But as I folded clothes into my bag, a strange calmness settled over me. I knew it was time. I had been saving a little money from babysitting jobs, and though it wasn't much, it was enough to rent a small room for a while. I told myself I deserved better, to be seen, to be valued, to exist without constantly being shoved aside for my brother's storms. That night, when the house was quiet, I zipped my bag, slipped on my jacket, and quietly walked out the door. No goodbye, no dramatic scene, just silence. I thought leaving quietly was my final gift to them, so they wouldn't have to deal with another problem child. I stepped into the night air, and though it was cold, it felt freeing. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to what they decided for me. I was choosing for myself. I rented a small room in a shared apartment downtown. It wasn't glamorous, cracked walls, squeaky floors, and a mattress that barely counted as a bed, but it was mine. The first night alone, I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I had made a mistake. But the next morning, when no one yelled at me to adjust my life around Daniel, I felt something new, peace. I started working extra shifts at a diner nearby. My coworkers didn't know my story, but they treated me with more kindness than my own family ever did. Customers would smile and thank me, and each thank you stitched up a piece of my broken heart. It wasn't easy, and I often felt lonely, but I reminded myself every day that loneliness was better than being invisible in a crowded house. Weeks turned into months, and slowly I built a new life. I reconnected with old friends, explained why I had disappeared, and to my surprise, they didn't judge me. They hugged me, told me I was strong, and even threw me a belated birthday dinner. It was simple: pizza, soda, and laughter in someone's backyard, but it meant the world. For the first time, I celebrated being 18, not because my family allowed it, but because I claimed it for myself. One day, my mom showed up at the diner. I froze when I saw her, plate in hand, walking toward a booth. She looked tired, older somehow, and when she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "We didn't realize how much we hurt you." Part of me wanted to scream, to unload years of pain, but another part just stood there, silent, unsure if I could believe her. She begged me to come home, said Daniel had been asking about me, but I wasn't ready. I told her I needed time, that I wasn't the same girl who tiptoed around my brother's tantrums anymore. I needed to be my own person. She nodded, though I could see the sadness in her face. Maybe one day I'll forgive them completely, maybe one day I'll step back into that house, but not until I'm sure they see me for who I am. Turning 18 was supposed to be about freedom, and in a twisted way, it was. My parents canceling my birthday pushed me into the life I had been too afraid to choose. It hurt, it broke me, but it also gave me strength. I moved out quietly, but my voice has never been louder. And though my journey hasn't been easy, I've learned that sometimes the worst pain can push you toward your greatest growth. The first few weeks on my own were harder than anything I had imagined. At night, when the city lights flickered outside my window, I often lay awake thinking about the house I left behind. I wondered if my parents even noticed my empty room, or if Daniel was glad to finally have all the attention without me there. But then I'd remind myself of the smirk on his face when they canceled my birthday, and that reminder pushed me to stay strong. Sometimes, pain is the only thing that keeps you moving forward. Money was always tight. My little savings disappeared quickly: rent, food, bus fare, it all added up. I started working double shifts at the diner, pouring coffee for tired strangers, wiping down tables, and smiling through exhaustion. My feet ached every night, but when I counted my tips and realized I could cover another week of rent, I felt proud. It wasn't the life I dreamed of, but it was mine. I was in control for the first time. Still, loneliness crept in when I least expected it. I'd watch families laughing together at the diner, kids teasing each other, parents rolling their eyes lovingly, and I'd feel a sting in my chest. I wanted that so badly, to be part of a family that celebrated each other instead of competing, where love wasn't a prize to be won. I questioned myself constantly: had I done the right thing leaving home? Or had I given up too soon? One Saturday night, after a particularly long shift, I came home to find an envelope slipped under my door. My heart raced. For a moment, I thought maybe my parents had found me. Inside was a birthday card, plain, simple, with no fancy design, and a note that said, "You deserve to be celebrated. Love, your friends." Tears poured down my face as I realized my friends had tracked me down and remembered me when my own family didn't. The next day, they surprised me with a small cake at the park. We laughed, sang, and ate until the sun went down. It wasn't about gifts or a big party. It was about finally being seen. But just when I thought I was moving on, the past found me. One afternoon, my father walked into the diner. He wasn't the kind of man to show emotions, but that day, his eyes looked heavy. He sat down quietly, ordered coffee, and when I placed the cup in front of him, he whispered, "We failed you." I froze. Those words, ones I never thought I'd hear, cracked open all the pain I had been trying to bury. He told me things I never knew. That my mother cried every night after I left. That Daniel, for once, didn't know how to handle not being the center of attention. He admitted they had spoiled him, given him too much power, and in doing so, they broke me. Hearing my father say those words felt surreal. But forgiveness doesn't come overnight. I stood there, holding the coffee pot, and said, "Dad, words don't erase years of being invisible." His shoulders dropped, and for the first time, he didn't argue back. After that, my parents started showing up more often. Sometimes my mom would bring me home-cooked food, other times she'd just sit quietly at the counter while I worked. Part of me wanted to shut them out completely, but another part, the little girl inside me who once longed for their love, wanted to believe they were changing. It was a battle inside me every single day. Daniel, on the other hand, was a different story. He texted me once, saying, "Happy now? You ruined the family." That message stung, but it also showed me why I left. He still didn't get it. He still thought life was about him, that my pain was somehow a betrayal. For a while, I ignored him, but eventually, I replied, "I didn't ruin the family. I saved myself." I never got a response, and maybe I never will, but sending that message felt like reclaiming my voice. Months later, something unexpected happened. The diner owner offered me a permanent position with better pay, saying I was one of the hardest workers he'd ever seen. That job gave me stability, and soon, I was able to move into a slightly better apartment, still small, but cozy, with sunlight that poured in every morning. I painted the walls myself, bought secondhand furniture, and for the first time, it felt like home. My 19th birthday rolled around not long after, and this time, I planned it myself with no fear of anyone canceling it. My friends filled the apartment with balloons, laughter, and love. As we cut the cake, I looked around the room and realized that family isn't always blood. Sometimes, it's the people who choose to stand by you when you have nothing to offer but your presence. When my parents called me that night to wish me a happy birthday, I thanked them, but I didn't invite them over. I wasn't ready, and that was okay. Healing isn't about rushing back into old wounds, it's about protecting your peace until you're strong enough to face them. My story didn't end with a perfect reunion, and maybe it never will. But what I learned is this: sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the deepest. And sometimes, walking away isn't giving up, it's finally choosing yourself. I may have moved out quietly, but the life I'm building now is loud with freedom, laughter, and hope. And that's what my brother's tantrum gave me without even realizing it, the strength to live my own life. By the time I turned 21, I had built a life that felt steady. I was no longer the girl who cried herself to sleep in a rented room. I had grown stronger, more confident, and more sure of who I was. The diner job had turned into a managerial role, and though it wasn't glamorous, it gave me pride. My friends were like family, always cheering me on, reminding me that I deserved love and respect. Still, late at night, a piece of me wondered if my real family would ever truly see me. One summer afternoon, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was my mom. I almost didn't answer, but something in me whispered that I should. Her voice was shaky. She told me Daniel had stormed out of the house after a fight and hadn't come back for 2 days. He was now 19, still living at home, still used to getting his way. My first instinct was to say, "Now you know how it feels to be ignored," but I couldn't. Blood runs deep, even when the bond feels broken. So, I asked her what she needed. She said through tears, "We just need you to come home." Maybe he'll listen to you. I laughed bitterly. Mom, he's never listened to me in his life. But something about her desperation tugged at me. I agreed to come, not for Daniel, but for myself, to see if I could face the house I once left in silence. Walking through the front door after 3 years felt strange. The walls looked the same, the furniture hadn't changed, but everything felt smaller, heavier. My mom hugged me tightly, and for the first time, I felt like she was holding on out of fear of losing me again. My dad looked older, more fragile, and when he said, "Thank you for coming," I could tell he meant it. But Daniel wasn't there. When he finally walked in later that night, he froze when he saw me. His face twisted, half shock, half annoyance. "So now you're the hero," he sneered. I stood up calmly, no longer the girl who begged for attention. "No, Daniel. I'm not here to be the hero. I'm here because this family is broken, and pretending everything revolves around you is why we're here." My parents stayed silent, and for once, they didn't rush to protect him. He shouted, accused me of abandoning them, accused me of being selfish. But this time, I didn't shrink. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Selfish? You stole my birthday, my childhood, and my parents' love for years. And they let you. But I'm done blaming you now. I blame myself for staying too long." The room fell silent. For the first time, Daniel had no comeback. That night, I didn't stay. I left with my head high, not in anger but in peace. I realized something important: you can't fix people who refuse to see their faults. And I wasn't going to waste my life trying. Months passed, and slowly, my parents started visiting me more than they visited him. They admitted he hadn't changed, that he still lashed out whenever things didn't go his way. But they also admitted they had made a mistake raising us, giving him power and taking mine away. It wasn't an excuse, but it was something. I learned to accept their efforts, even if late, while protecting my boundaries. Years later, I was invited to speak at a youth event about resilience and independence. As I stood on stage, sharing how I moved out on my 18th birthday, I noticed my parents sitting quietly in the audience. My mom had tears in her eyes, my dad nodded proudly. And for the first time, I realized they finally saw me. Not as the background to my brother, but as a woman who found her voice despite everything. As for Daniel, he never truly changed. He drifted in and out of jobs, relationships, and excuses. Sometimes, I hear updates from my parents, but I don't ask much. I've accepted that not every story has a happy ending, and not every family member grows with you. And that's okay. My life isn't defined by who he is. Looking back, I understand now that the night my birthday was cancelled wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning. If my parents had celebrated me that day, maybe I would have stayed, maybe I would have never learned my own strength. It took heartbreak to push me out the door, but it also gave me the chance to build a life where I am seen, valued, and loved. Today, when I blow out my birthday candles, I don't wish for my family to be different. I wish for courage, for peace, for growth, and I celebrate myself, because no tantrum, no rejection, and no silence can ever take that away from me again. And that, my friends, is the lesson I carry. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do, and sometimes the family you build is far more beautiful than the one you were born into.